So let's take a quick look at Simple Network Management Protocol and the associated features that we might be able to utilize to gain information. Right off the bat, I want to talk about community strings. To go into a little bit of detail about community strings, they're basically names associated with groups of systems that communicate with each other. An example of this would be joining a particular network node to the default public community string so that it can communicate with various management interfaces that can receive traps from it. And the basic idea here is that when a system has a problem or needs to send a message to an administrator, it's going to use the SNMP protocol, and it's going to send that information to a workstation or to an analytical point where that information can be gathered and alerts can be fired off. And when it performs that communication process, it's going to utilize the group that it's been made a member of. By default, all systems with SNMP are made a member of the public community string. And what that means is that because it's the default and it's a public community string, almost anyone with no permissions at all can actually read information from that. And even in some cases, because the public string can have various permissions assigned, you can actually write to it or make modifications to the way it acts. So as you can imagine, this is definitely a vulnerability or at least a point of interest for security professionals. Another thing that we've mentioned in passing is the management or message information base. And this is basically something that contains a list of all possible system issues that could ever take place. So it's going to contain information about services, about software, user accounts, utilization peaks, all these different features. And all of these things are very interesting to us when we're trying to break into a network. Now the great thing is, for our intents and purposes, we only need read access for the public community string to be in place in order for us to gain extensive information. Now it's really a bonus to us if the public community string has write privileges. Then we can really do some damage on a network by changing certain settings around and turning off alert systems. And this whole enumeration process obviously is going to be effective for any individual network device or group of devices with SNMP enabled. Now, I should mention that there are some newer versions of SNMP that set read access to deny for public, which actually forces the administrators to move over to a private community string and potentially encrypt and password protect that information. So any good system administrator or security administrator is probably going to take the time to go in and lock that down. But you'd be very surprised, probably a good 50 to 75% of devices on corporate networks are not configured for anything other than the public community string with default permissions. So let's take a quick look at what we might be able to grab as far as SNMP information is concerned. So we're going to go over to our attack system. And in one of our previous scans, we'll take a quick look at, we identified a system that was running quite a few services. And that particular system was the Advocate Web Server at .132. So we kind of focused here on 132 a little bit. And as we look through, we may not notice that SNMP is enabled. But we're going to test out any theories that we might have because, remember, systems change all the time, and it's possible that we might be able to enumerate some information from it. So we're going to use the SNMP enum Perl script that comes with the backtrack distribution. So we're going to use SNMP enum. And we're going to point it over to our server that we suspect might have some valuable information for us. We're going to specify the public community string because, again, that's the default and not everybody makes changes to that. We're going to specify the Windows configuration file because we know it's running the Windows operating system. So as you can see, it's actually dumping information across as we speak. It's telling us about all the different things that are installed. It's in the workgroup domain. As we scroll back up through the output here, we can see that it's running a Win server. It's running WMI. Let's see what else we can find here. It's supporting the NTLM security process, which we would expect from a Windows box. It's running RPC, which is a commonly exploited protocol. We see FTP, DFS, remote registry is enabled. We can see the SNMP trap service is there, IS admin service. So as you can see, as we kind of scroll through this, there are a ton of things running here. And a lot of these actually have vulnerabilities that are existent and we could exploit right now. So as we're scrolling up through, we can see we're running a DNS server, quite a bit of information here. And if we continue to go up, we can see listening TCP ports. Now remember, this is definitely going to be accurate because the system reported back to us the information it knew about itself. We basically use the public string to read the information associated with SNMP on the remote system. So we know this information is going to be accurate because it was provided to us. There's our UDP ports, additional system information. Here are any running services. So we can actually see the individual executable name for the running processes. We can see the disks. We have apparently 3 different disks associated here. We can see the users that are currently logged onto the system. There's the SNMP host name, how long the system's been up, and here's a great example of some things that are installed on the system. There's a VetriGo server. We've got a MySQL server, a MSSQL server, software called Gimme Free Data, and it looks like web folders. We even have Java Runtime version 5 running on this system. So as you can see, a lot of things can be gained from a simple SNMP enumeration. This is information it would have probably taken us days to gather using dozens of different tools, but we were able to get it immediately using SNMP. So I've saved this as a file so that we might be able to utilize it later for our hacking processes.